and gentlemen, this is the moment you've all been waiting for. The tension is building. Are you ready? It's time for the final countdown. Let's count down together. The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
All right, it's showtime. Experience is supposed to make us wiser. But there comes a dangerous moment when experience stops being evidence of what we know and becomes an excuse for what we refuse to learn. Let me go again. Experience is supposed to make us wiser. But there comes a dangerous moment when experience stops being evidence of what we know and becomes an excuse for what we refuse to learn. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Leadership Unscripted. So tonight, we're putting one sentence on trial, just one sentence on trial. You've probably heard it. Some of you have probably said it. I know I've heard it throughout my professional life. So here it is. I've been doing this for years. That's the sentence we are putting on trial tonight. I've been doing this for years. Sometimes that sentence deserves respect because experience matters. Experience gives perspective. Experience teaches lessons no textbook can teach. Experience allows you to recognize patterns. Experience can help you make better decisions. Experience can produce wisdom. But, that same sentence can become incredibly dangerous. Because sometimes when someone says, I've been doing this for 20 years, what they're really saying is, don't question me. I've been raising children longer than you've been alive. I've been teaching for 25 years. I've been running this business since before you graduated. I've been married for 30 years. I've been managing people for decades. I've always done it this way. So tonight I want to ask, when does experience stop being an asset and start becoming an obstacle? That's the question tonight. When does experience stop being an asset and start becoming an obstacle? Because doing something for 20 years does not automatically mean you've been doing it well for 20 years. Let me repeat that. Doing something for 20 years does not automatically mean you've been doing it well for 20 years. Sometimes you've had 1 year of experience repeated 20 times. What did I say? Sometimes you've been in a role, in a job for 20 years. But what you really have is 1 year of experience you've been repeating 20 times. So let me say that again. 20 years in a profession does not necessarily equal 20 years of growth. And that's where tonight gets interesting. So I'm going to give you 5 statements. And I want you to select one. 5 statements, and I want you to select one. Wisdom If you think it represents healthy experience, type ego. If you think experience has become arrogance, so you're going to either type wisdom or ego. Wisdom, if you think it represents healthy experience, or ego, if you think experience has become arrogance. Here's statement 1. I've tried that before. It didn't work, but I'm willing to hear how you approach it different. Is that wisdom or ego? Good evening, Marie. Is that wisdom or ego? I've tried it before. It didn't work, but I'm willing to hear how your approach is different. Is that wisdom or is that ego? Wisdom. Okay, number 2. You don't need to explain this to me. I've been doing this longer than you. Wisdom or ego? You don't need to explain this to me. I've been doing it longer than you. All right, you're on point tonight, man. You're on par tonight. This one. Young people today think they know everything. Young people today think they know everything. Wisdom or ego? And the final one. That's how we've always done it. That's how we've always done it. Wisdom or ego? Very interesting. Because tonight we're discovering something important. That experience isn't the problem. What we do with experience is. So experience is actually good, but it's what we do with it becomes the problem. So I want to introduce a different idea tonight. What if some of your experience has expired? What if some of your experience has expired? Not all of it, but some. So let us think about technology. Something that made you excellent in 2010 might be irrelevant in 2026. Am I correct? Something that made you excellent in 2010 might be irrelevant in 2026. Think about business. Think about customer service. Think about education. Think about parenting. Think about relationships. Think about communication. Think about how people consume information. What about artificial intelligence? Think about how workplaces operate nowadays. The world changes, people change, knowledge changes, technology changes, expectation changes, evidence changes, and CAF says everything evolves. So experience creates a strong leadership challenge. The longer you've been successful, the easier it becomes to believe the method that created yesterday's success will automatically create tomorrow's success. What did I say? The longer you've been successful, the easier it becomes to believe the method that created yesterday's success will automatically create tomorrow's success. And they may not. Yesterday's expertise can become tomorrow's blind spot. Practices become outdated. The same strategies you used last week and last year may not be relevant today. So what is something you were taught years ago that you now realize was nothing, or at least incomplete? It doesn't have to be professional. Could be about parenting, money, could be about relationship, health, leadership, education. Let me see, what is something you were taught years ago, but today you realize it was wrong, or at least incomplete? What is one thing you were taught years ago? Anything. Can be about anything. Can be about parenting. Can be about money, relationship, health, leadership, education. Remember long ago, 10, 15 years ago, people thought when you put your money in the bank and it grows a dollar per month, you say you're getting interest on your money. And now People not saving money in bank again. They're investing their money. They're investing and buying shares on those things. 10, 15 years ago, as you get a little dollar, you run gone to the bank. Go and lodge it. You have to lodge my money in the bank. And after a year, the interest may be like $6, $7. You remember those times? you remember those times? Sometimes you lodge your money in the bank, and after 2, 3 years, if you make $100, you make enough on interest. And we used to love and want to see the interest. But now, you have people making that in less than a minute. Nowadays, they're now investing. So putting money in the bank and letting it sit there is no longer attractive. And there are many other things. There are many other ideas. Back then, we had to have a bank book. Exactly. Even the bank book, Marie. Yes, the bank book. No, I don't even have a bank book. I have about 6 bank accounts. I don't have a bank book for any of them. I don't have a bank book anymore. I don't have a bank book. Oh, you remember when, about 5, 6 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, when, especially if you're teaching in Jamaica, and you get your salary, it comes on a check, and you have to wait until the principal go to the head office to get the check. And everybody wait at school until the principal come to the office and tear out the check and give everybody their check. And then you have to go to the bank and form this long line to cash your check. You remember those days? You remember those days? And sometimes the principal ever late. Teacher not leaving school on payday. Principal gone head office. Principal gone head office for the check. And if rain fall, no matter what, thunderstorm, no teacher is leaving school that evening. Everybody want their check to go home with. You remember those days? You remember those days when we used to depend on check? The bank book, as Marie says. You remember the textbook days? When you had to rent textbook? People still doing that? Renting textbook? And you have to sit down and you have to, even when you have SBA, you have to sit down and write it in your best handwriting. You remember those days? And when we had our Prince Egan Regional Office. Exactly. Prince Egan Regional Office to collect the check. You remember those days? Do you remember those days? Do you remember those days? So this is important because changing your mind isn't evidence that you're weak. Sometimes changing your mind is evidence that you kept learning. Can you imagine a teacher going to the regional office now to say, I don't want my salary to be lodged to my account. I want a check to be sent every month? Can you imagine that? So now let's make tonight's conversation wider. Because this tension happens everywhere. So imagine a 55-year-old employee saying, these young people don't want to work. And the 25-year-old employee saying, these old people refuse to change. Who's right? Who is right in this situation? The 55-year-old employee saying, these young people don't want to work. And the 25-year-old employee saying, these old people refuse to change. Who is right? Maybe both. Maybe neither. Maybe we're asking the wrong question. The experienced person has something valuable. And that's pattern recognition. They've seen cycles. They've survived mistakes. They understand history. They've developed judgment. But the younger or less experienced person may bring something equally valuable. Fresh eyes. Age and perspective differ. Exactly, Kath. So the younger person or the less experienced person may bring something equally valuable. They bring fresh eyes, different technology, new knowledge, different assumptions, questions that experienced people stopped asking years ago. And great organizations need both. We need the experience, but we need a fresh idea, the new perspectives. We need both. Great organizations need both. Because experience without fresh thinking becomes stagnation. Experience, no matter how experienced you are, If you refuse to learn without fresh thinking, it becomes stagnation. Fresh thinking without experience can become recklessness. What did I say? Fresh thinking without experience can become recklessness. So it work both. So organization need both. Experience without fresh thinking becomes stagnation. But the fresh thinking without the experience can become recklessness. Perfect Imperfect King says change is constant. Learning and adapting are ongoing processes. Exactly. Remember, wisdom is knowing how to bring them together. So it's not the old people pointing finger at the younger ones, the inexperienced ones, to say they're young, they don't know storm. There's nothing they can learn from them. And it isn't the younger persons pointing finger at the more experienced people saying, you refuse to learn, you refuse to change. Both must learn from each other. And good leaders should use wisdom in knowing how to bring both perspective, the experience and the new perspective together. And Dr. Peter, yes, we have to be committees. So can you imagine if both young and old collaborate the right? Exactly. Perfect imperfect. Can you imagine if both young and old collaborate together? But sometimes those with the experience, they think their way is the best way. They think their way is the best way. So they shut down any innovation, any change in idea, any change in perspective, anything that is different from the norm. It is frowned upon, and that's wrong. So let me ask you a question. Who taught you more professionally? Someone older than you or someone younger than you? Who taught you more professionally? Someone older than you or someone younger than you? Let me see, older or younger. Or it could be both. Who taught you more professionally? Hmm? Who taught you more professionally? Someone older than you or someone younger than you? Or could it be both? So you're going to type older, younger, or both. As Nikki says both. Kaf says older. I'm cognizant of the fact that when I die, I will not be buried on the school campus. Exactly. So who taught you more professionally? Who can you learn more from? Someone older or someone younger? Who can you learn more from? And I'm going to go to that and say both. Both. Because learning doesn't have an age requirement. And neither does wisdom. Exactly. Both. Learning doesn't have an age requirement. And neither does wisdom. So you can learn from a child. You can learn from somebody who's 99. And you can learn from somebody who's 5. So learning doesn't have an age requirement. So some of those old people in the workplace, we call them cornerstone, who refuse to take ideas, who refuse to listen to the less experienced persons in the organization. Something is wrong, man. That's something we need to work on. We need both perspectives to drive the organization. So I want everybody listening to complete some sentences privately. Don't type these. Just finish them in your head. People younger than me don't understand. People younger than me don't understand. What comes next? No. The problem with the new generation is, just complete the sentence in your head. Now this one, nobody needs to teach me about. So I don't know what your response was. But remember, Wherever you believe you've reached the point where nobody can teach you anything, you may have identified your next blind spot. If you believe nobody can teach you anything new, you've just identified your blind spot. And there are things I'm highly experienced in. There are things you're highly experienced in. There are things I've studied academically. There are areas where I have professional expertise. But expertise should change the quality of my questions. It should never eliminate my questions. Expertise should change the quality of your questions. It should never eliminate your questions. So let's test this. Imagine you're 52 years old. Imagine you're 52 years old. You've worked in your industry or your business for 28 years. You're highly respected. You've built a strong career. You've seen employees come and go. Now a 27-year-old joins your organization. They've been there 6 months. During a meeting, they say, I think there's a better way to do this. And then they suggest changing a process that you helped created 15 years ago. Immediately you think, I've forgotten more about this organization than this person knows. And maybe that's true. But here's the twist. They show you the data. Their proposal could reduce processing time by 40%. But implementing it would mean abandoning a system you helped build 15 years ago. Now I want everyone voting. What bothers you most? Is it A, their lack of experience? B, their confidence? C, the possibility that they're right? Or D, nothing? Just show me the evidence. What's your answer? Is it A, their lack of experience? B, their confidence? C, the possibility that they're right? Or D, nothing? Show me the evidence. So remember that this scenario is you're 52 years old. You've been working in your business for 28 years. You've worked on a system. You've helped to create a system 15 years ago. However, this young 27-year-old person just joined the organization 6 months ago, and they said to you, I think there's a better way to do this. They present to you a proposal that could reduce processing time by 40%. What would bother you the most? Is it A, their lack of experience? Is it B, their confidence? Is it C, the possibility that they're right? Or D, nothing? All you want is the evidence that their proposal will work. What should bother you most? Marie says D, nothing. Nothing should bother you. Once they come with the evidence, once they come with their proposal, it doesn't matter if they've been there for 1 week. If they can present to you the evidence that show how systems can be improved, it shouldn't bother you. Once you review that evidence and you see, yes, it can work, it shouldn't bother you. So now let's examine this. If you choose A, that's reasonable. So if you thought their lack of experience bothers you, that's reasonable, because experience matters. You should question whether they understand the unintended consequences. If you choose B, their confidence, that's rather interesting too. Why does their confidence should bother you though? If you choose C, now we're getting somewhere. Because sometimes we aren't resisting new idea because it's bad. Sometimes we are resisting what accepting the idea would force us to admit that we were wrong. So let us talk about this a little bit more. Sometimes in institutions, just say, when you see people saying, this is how we've always been doing it. I've been doing this for 10 years, 15 years. I know what I'm doing. It's not that they don't want to change, you know. It's not that they don't want to change. But if they accept your idea, if they don't shut you down, if they don't show you who's in charge, if they don't resist, it will force them to admit that what they were doing wasn't right. It will force them to admit that there were flaws in what they were doing. It will force them to admit that someone can do something better, or someone can improve on something they've created in the past. And because of that, before they allow you to correct or show them up, because that's how they're looking at it, you know. They're not looking at it in the sense that the organization will improve. They're thinking about self, so it's all about them. And they want to be the author of all new initiative. So they're going to shut it down. So Marie says, while young people may not yet have years of experience, they bring fresh perspective. And a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of people... Am I the only one who have heard it many, many times? Older folks frowned upon the idea of young people being elevated into leadership positions. Am I the only person who have come across that, where older people frown upon the idea of young people being elevated into leadership? They don't like it. They think you must do years. They use leadership as a years of service award. Do you remember those days when we were in Jamaica years ago, when to get senior teacher in a school, you have to be there from donkey was a boy? You remember those days? When no matter how you're young and bright and you're contributing to the school, if you haven't been there 20, 30 years, you will never get senior teacher. I hope it changed now. But in my time, I never know of a young senior teacher. They're always old. Always people have been there for 20, almost people who were heading towards their retirement. They were the senior teachers. No matter how the young person come in the school and they're doing things and they're innovative and they're changing things, nope. That is a years of service award. You don't have years of service, we don't care what you bring to the table. You're not getting it. And here Marie hitting some point. Experience alone, it does not determine your leadership capacity. And we have a lot of leaders now who believe that because they've been in a position for longer than you cannot teach them anything. They believe they cannot learn anything from you. And how wrong they are. How wrong they are. And that's because leaders sometimes attach identity to their work. So when somebody comes up with a new idea, in their head they're thinking, I created that, I introduced that. That was my program, that was my policy. It's all about them. Not true. It's all about them. It's all about them. But a mature leader would ask, is my job to protect my idea or improve the organization? And that is what most of these persons, they don't understand. That not because they started an initiative was there, and someone come and want to critique it and improve on it, they should reject or resist such change. No, it's not about you. This is bigger than you. It's about an institution. This is bigger than you. You and your ego, leave your ego at home when you're coming to work. Leave your ego at home. It's not about you. And here's the line I want people remembering tomorrow. Years of experience. Your experience should earn you a seat at the table. It should never give you ownership of the table. What did I say? Your experience should earn you a seat at the table, but it should never give you the ownership of the table. So not because you've been there for 50 years, you believe you should own the table. No. You get a seat at the table because we want to hear different perspectives. But that doesn't mean you should own. Everything should be about you. No, we don't do it like that. Different perspectives matter. So here's something else we often confuse. Experience and expertise are not identical. We oftentimes confuse that. Experience and expertise are not identical. Experience tells me I've encountered this before. Expertise asks, what have I learned from encountering it? Experience, it tells you what you've encountered before. Expertise allow you to ask yourself a question. What did I learn from encountering it? So reflection is a bridge between the two. Reflection is a bridge between experience and expertise. Without reflection, experience can simply reintroduce bad ideas. Without reflection, people who don't reflect, experience can simply reinforce bad habits. So think about driving. Someone can say, I've been driving for 30 years. Wonderful. They may also have been driving badly for 30 years. Longevity proves duration. It doesn't automatically prove quality. And that's why feedback matters. Evidence matters. Professional development matters. Reading matters. Mentorship matters. Reflection matters. And yes, being willing to learn from somebody with less experience than you matters. Because you can be leading an organization for 20 years and you've been doing a bad job at it for 20 years. So sometimes your experience doesn't mean you're bringing equality to the table. You can be doing something for 20 years, but you are never doing a good job at it. So you keep repeating bad habits. It's 20 years of repeated bad habits. And you think you're doing a good job. No. That's not you doing a good job. That's 20 years of bad habits. Bad habits. So when someone comes to you and want to flaunt their years of experience in your face, there's a question you can ask them. Where's the impact of your 20 years? Where's the impact of your 10 years? And Mary says sometimes there's no vision. And that's why sometimes when you have some people stay in a role for too long, they stagnate the organization. The organization becomes stagnant. Growth just stops. Everything plateaued. Everything just plateau. Especially if the leader isn't willing to learn. Especially if whoever is leading the organization refuses to learn from the people within the organization. Everything will just plateau. Growth will just stop. Growth will just stop. I remember working somewhere and I left there, I think 2 years I left for. And when I returned, on day one, I fit in perfect. It was like I never left. Do you think that was a good thing? I left for 2 years. And when I returned, on day one, I fit in back perfect. It was like I never left. Nothing changed. Nothing changed. For the 2 years I was away, nothing changed. Processes had changed elsewhere. Information changed. How to do things changed. But when I went back to that organization, nothing changed after leaving for 2 years. So sometimes you can be leading somewhere, and if you're unwilling to learn, if you're not somebody who is a reflective practitioner, and who's willing to use the expertise of your team to drive your organization, it will plateau. Marie says this discussion should be streamed worldwide. I agree with you. But not a lot of us, you see, because I'm young, you see, a lot of folks, they're not willing for the level of hardcore discussion I'm going to come with. And a lot of them watching, but they won't click on the live. Yeah, a lot of them watching, but they won't click on the live. Because when they click, we will see that they're watching. So they're watching, a lot of them watching, but they won't click on the live. They need to brace themselves. Exactly. So remember, being willing to learn from somebody with less experience, trust me, it matters. It matters. It matters. And this is one of the reasons I wrote The Teaching and Learning Leader. So although the book is grounded in educational leadership, one of its principles extends into every profession. The leader must remain a learner. Every leader must remain a learner. Every individual, whether you're in a leadership role or not, you must remain a learner. You must remain a learner. You cannot credibly build a learning organization while becoming an unteachable leader. True. It's so factual. People stay comfortable with what they know and don't want to change. Exactly. They just want to do the same thing over and over. And because it worked last year, we're going to do it this year. And it worked this year, so we're going to do it next year. And if it worked next year, we're going to do it the other year. And we keep doing the same thing over and over and over. And Nikki Franklin says, every leader must remain a learner. Every leader must remain a learner. So you cannot credibly build a learning organization while becoming an unteachable leader. Think about the contradiction. You tell your employees you need professional development. If you're a principal, you tell teachers you need to improve your practice. If you're a teacher, you tell children, listen and learn. You tell employees, be open to feedback. Then somebody gives you feedback and suddenly they don't understand your experience. No, the standard has to apply to leaders too. The CEO must learn, the principal must learn, the entrepreneur must learn, the parent must learn, the teacher must learn, the veteran employee must learn, the person with a doctorate must learn. The person who's been married 40 years can still learn something about relationship. Because the moment your credentials become evidence that you no longer need correction, education has stopped serving you and started protecting your ego. Remember that. Remember that. Dr. P says, whether they're clicking or not, we are clocking it here. Exactly, Dr. P. They're watching. They're watching, Dr. P. They're watching. They're watching. They're watching. Remember, the moment your credentials become evidence that you no longer need correction, education has stopped serving you and started protecting your ego. And this is where tonight's interest with the psychology of fragility. Where's my book? I had it somewhere here. Throw my book there for me. I have my book here. Last night I had it in my suitcase, you see? This is good knowledge, you know. This. The psychology of fragility. Because why do experienced people sometimes become defensive when challenged? Why? Why? Because we think we're experienced. We become so defensive when we're challenged. And it's easy to call it arrogance. Because sometimes it is. But sometimes underneath the arrogance is what? Fragility. It's fragility. Think about it. If I've spent 30 years being known as the expert, what happens when someone demonstrates that I don't know something? If my identity is I'm the person with the answers, then saying I don't know feels threatening. So I protect myself, I dismiss younger employees, I attack new ideas, I question the person's credentials, I remind everyone how long I've been here. Not necessarily because their idea is wrong, but because my identity feels threatened. It means you're fragile. It means you're fragile. Dr. P says, yes, I can testify how good it is. It had me reflecting on my own leadership and practice. I wish people would buy it and read it, Dr. P. I'm traveling and I travel with it. I travel with one copy and I'm not selling it. I'm reading it. I glance at some of the parts in it because sometimes we need a reminder. We need a reminder. We need a reminder. So remember, you see, arrogance is sometimes insecurity wearing authority. What did I say? Arrogance is sometimes insecurity wearing authority. And emotionally healthy leaders don't need to know everything. They can say, I don't know. Teach me. I hadn't considered that. I was wrong. You know I was wrong? Or your idea is better. Those sentences don't reduce your authority. They reveal that you're secure in your leadership. That shows a leader who is secure enough to admit when they don't know something, to admit when they're wrong, and a leader who is willing to learn. Because that is how you will grow. That is how you will grow. So we're now going to do something different. For the next minute, I don't want you thinking about what you need to learn. Think about what you may need to unlearn. There's a difference. So maybe you need to unlearn. Leaders must always have the answers. You may need to unlearn that. Children should never question adults. Unlearn that. Employees who disagree are disloyal. Unlearn that. Working longer means working harder. Unlearn that. Being busy means being productive. Unlearn that. This one now. The customer is always right. Unlearn that. If it worked before, it will work again. Unlearn that. Experience automatically makes me right. Unlearn that. Unlearn it. Let me go again. Leaders must always have the answers. Unlearn. Remove it. Children should never question adults. Unlearn that. Nonsense. Employees who disagree are disloyal. Foolishness. Working longer hours means working harder. Foolishness. Being busy means being productive. Foolishness. The customer is always right. Lies from the pit of hell, as Perfect Imperfect King says. If it worked before, it will work again. Foolishness. Experience automatically makes me right. Foolishness. Foolishness. So now I want you to finish this sentence for me. I may do it, Dr. P. I think I'm going to do it. So now I want you to finish this sentence for me. Something I may need to unlearn is. Something I may need to unlearn is. If you're comfortable, you can put it in the comments. Because this could become one of the strongest audience moments. It could become one of the strongest audience moments tonight. If you're comfortable, put it in the chat. Something you may need to unlearn. If you're not comfortable, that's fine. That's fine. Don't rush it. If you're not comfortable, that's fine. You can keep it and reflect on it. That God, the perfect imperfect King, that says that something he needs to learn is that God help those who help themselves. Straight out of hell. Oh boy, God help those who help themselves straight out of hell. But there are a lot of things that we were taught that we need to unlearn. Dr. P said leaders must always save others. Exactly. Lies from the pit of hell. If you try to help everybody, to save everybody, who will save you? Who will save you? Only God can save everybody. So a lot of things, exactly, Sean, a lot of things we need to unlearn. A lot of things we need to unlearn. We need to unlearn a lot of things. A lot of things we need to unlearn. So remember, when people, that's why I drowned. And you don't drown in Dr. P. You don't drown because you are a learning leader, so you will never drown. You will never drown because you are a learning leader. People like us, we don't drown. We bounce back. We don't drown. Can't drown us no time at all. Perfect said the Titanic going down with one jack and it's not me. That's what they like. Exactly. You are a learning leader. You don't drown. We will never drown. And that's fragile people way of looking at it. No. Sometimes it's simple. When people think we're drowning, we choose ourselves. We're choosing ourselves and our sanity. Sometimes it's us choosing ourselves and our sanity. Trust me on that. Sometimes it is us choosing ourselves and our sanity. And cares not what people want to say. Nobody knows us more than us. Nobody knows what nobody knows your breaking point but you. So we're just floating here. We don't drown. We float. And if we believe the wind is blowing us in the wrong direction, we ain't going in that direction anymore. We're going to change course. And sometimes we change course before people expect us to change course. That's us choosing us. That's self-preservation, trust me. Exactly. Now, here's a concept I want to leave with you tonight. Yes, hiding in the belly of the whale. I will come out in exactly Dr. P. So here's a concept I want to leave with you tonight. So imagine your mind has a boardroom. Imagine it as a boardroom. Sitting around the table are experience, evidence, curiosity, humility, intuition, feedback, and ego. So imagine your mind is a boardroom, and sitting around the table are experience, evidence, curiosity, humility, intuition, feedback, and ego. All of them have a voice. Experience should absolutely speak. Experience has heard that. But experience should never be allowed to walk into the meeting and dismiss everyone else. Remember that. They should never walk in and say, meeting over. I've been doing this for years. No. They've earned a seat at the table, but they will not take over the table. No. That's not wisdom. Wisdom listens to experience, then check the evidence, then invites feedback, stays curious, and has enough humility to change course when necessary. So everybody fit around the table. The only person who doesn't have a place at the table is ego. Ego doesn't belong at the table. Ego does not belong at the progress table. Ego and progress will not sit at the same table. So experience is good, but when you allow ego to take over that, when you allow ego, that's when your experience becomes dangerous. Because that will stop you from learning. So let me go again. Sitting at a table, we have experience, we have evidence, we have curiosity, we have humility, intuition, feedback, and ego. Everybody have a voice. Experience should speak. They've earned it. But they should never be allowed to take over the table. They should never be allowed to take over the table. They've earned a seat at the table to contribute, not to take over. Because if you allow them to take over, that's not wisdom. Because when you have wisdom, wisdom is going to listen. Wisdom will listen to experience. And having listened to experience, wisdom will then check evidence to see what evidence have to say. And when evidence do the checking, evidence will now invite feedback. And that results in everybody staying curious. And when everyone at the table has enough humility to change course when necessary, progress is the end result. I did not mention ego. Ego doesn't belong at the table. Ego doesn't belong in the room any at all. So you cannot be in service to people if ego is a part of you. You leave ego at home. Leave ego at home. And you should not even be in your home either. So I don't even know where you're going to leave ego. And there's a book, I think it's written by Ryan Holiday. I don't remember, it's Ryan something. But the title of the book is Ego is the Enemy. Go read it. I have it on my dresser in my room at home. Ego is the Enemy. That's a powerful book. Ego is the Enemy. That's a powerful book. I think it was Ryan Holiday. I don't remember the name of the author. It's Ryan something though. But the title is Ego is the Enemy. Go read that book. Ego can cripple you. Ego can cripple your growth. It can cripple you personally. It can cripple the people around you. It can cripple an entire organization. Ego doesn't belong. Ego and progress should not be in the same room or in the same conversation. Remember that. Just remember that. So tonight I don't want to ask, how long have you been doing what you do? No, that's not particularly interesting. I want to ask you, how much have you changed while doing it? So if you've been leading for 20 years, are you leading differently? If you've been parenting for 20 years, what have your children taught you? If you've been married for 30 years, are you still learning from your partner and learning with your partner? If you've been running your business for 15 years, what beliefs have you abandoned? If you've been teaching for 25 years, are you still curious? If you've been managing people for decades, do younger employees still teach you anything? Because longevity is not the goal. Growth is. Longevity is never the goal. We don't care how long you've been in that position. I don't care how long you've been a teacher, how long you've been a principal, a director. I don't care how long you've been in that position. Longevity is not important. That is never the goal. Growth is. So if you're in a role and you're not growing in the role, there's a problem. So tomorrow, when you're tempted to say, I've been doing this for years, add 5 words. But what can I learn? So instead of telling somebody, I've been doing this for 10 years, 5 years, add 5 more words to it. Complete the sentence. But what can I learn? And learn something new. Learn something new. Because that changes everything. Experience says, I've seen this before. Wisdom says, but perhaps there's something I haven't seen. Because you cannot see everything. Have you ever been on an excursion and every time you go on that excursion, you see something new? When you go on vacation, and even if you go to the same place, every time you go, you experience something different. It's the same thing with growth. You cannot remain in one place. There will always be something you need to learn. There will always be something you haven't seen before. So remember, experience says, I've seen this before. Wisdom says, but perhaps there's something I haven't seen. Star teacher says, I remember teaching back home in Jamaica. Teachers were only offered position based on years. Yes, God, years of service. It was a long service award. Yes. So experience says, I know. Wisdom says, tell me more. We're using wisdom. Experience says, this worked before. Wisdom asks, does it still work now? And arrogance says, nobody can teach me anything. That's the moment experience becomes dangerous, when you believe nobody can teach you anything. The day you start believing that, I've learned so much about leadership from the teachers at my school. I've learned so much about being a better leader and dealing with people better from the teachers at my school. Because you can come with the content knowledge, but when you're in the field, it's completely different. When you're in the field, it's completely different. When you're in the field, it is completely different. And that's why I'm ever learning. I'm ever willing to learn. And remember, when you start saying nobody can teach you anything, that's when your experience becomes dangerous. We're using wisdom. We're asking, does it still work now? We're asking, tell me more. We're asking, but perhaps there's something I still haven't seen. That is what we're asking. So instead of saying, I've been doing this for years, complete the sentence now. Add, but what can I learn? Because there's always something to learn. So before you leave, I want you to answer this question tonight. What is one thing you believe today that you didn't believe 10 years ago? What is one thing you believe today that you didn't believe 10 years ago? What is one thing you believe today that I didn't believe that people under 45 could become and be successful principals? In my days, every principal back then, they were older people. I didn't see any principal in the 20s and 30s. I didn't see that. That's new. That is new. Ten years ago, most of us believed that you had to have years of experience in a field to share knowledge. No, that changed. That's significantly changed now. People are more gravitated toward wisdom, not experience anymore, because when experience, a lot of these experienced people